Hi! Would you look at that? Draw and Talk number 15. Who'd have thought I'd make it this far? Can't say that I did, but I'm glad you're still here. For those of you who are, it's been a lot of fun so far. Gives me stuff to do each week and makes me feel a little bit accomplished. So what you're seeing on screen right now is me animating Sheila from Dungeons & Dragons cartoon because I signed up for a fandom MAP, and wouldn't you know it, it's Cartoon Heroes. Yeah, this is the first fandom MAP I've ever been a part of. The reason I decided to actually join was because the theme was to use cartoons from your childhood. I believe I said this in the last session, yeah. I've always loved the Cartoon Heroes song, even though it's just very nostalgic for me. It's a pretty silly song, and I can remember back in the day watching Shaolin Showdown AMVs to the music, and yeah, very excited to be animating and drawing my Dungeons & Dragons cartoon kids so much lately. And in fact, I'm almost done with the entire MAP part. It's just, there's like maybe 2 seconds that I still have to do, but it's like 6 different bodies that are all moving, and so it's going to take a while to do that part, and I plan to color it really, like, intricately. I wouldn't say I'm going to shade, I'm just gonna, like, add a lot of blush and eye shinies and hair shinies and all that stuff. Later in this video, you'll see me doing that to this animation. You know, I never really do much in-depth coloring for animations on recordings, I don't think. I just kind of spontaneously started to color this shot because when I finished animating the shot that you're seeing, I was like, well, this is not enough footage for the draw and talk. Let's see what else I can do. And at first I was going to animate some other parts from the MAP part, but I decided it would be more fun for you guys to watch me color it and kind of polish it off. Unfortunately though, after I colored this part, I ended up telling my sister about the Cartoon Heroes MAP, and that prompted me to go get a link to the MAP part. And I went and checked the rules again, and I realized there was kind of a color palette for the MAP, and I was like, oh no, I already colored it, and I colored it with all the hair shinies and everything, and I was a little devastated. At first I was kind of like, oh man, I wasted an hour of my time, and I also wasted your guys' time because I was like, well, now you're just gonna watch me coloring stuff that isn't even going to be in the final product. Yeah, I did end up having to go in later and recolor a lot of things from this shot. Fortunately for me though, the person in charge of the MAP says you can add colors that you need when you need them, and there were a few things that I just felt I could not change the colors of. So I'm really thankful that they're being a little lenient on the color palette. It's just, they wanted the MAP to flow somewhat seamlessly, you know, with the colors. They wanted it to kind of flow well together, and I think my usage of a lot of the colors in the color palette does work for what the MAP needs. And though I had to make some colors of my own for a lot of things, a lot of other things were still based on the color palette given. Yeah, I did end up recoloring, like, her shirt and her hair. Sheila's shirt and hair anyway, the girl with the orange hair. I did end up recoloring that stuff, those frames. But fortunately, it did not take that much time and it wasn't that painful. But yeah, what you guys see in this video will just kind of be the first iteration of it. It's not too different with the new color palette, like, it's still basically the same colors, it's just brighter, I guess. But yeah, well, that's enough of me talking about just random stuff about this MAP part that I'm working on. So I've been getting into a certain show lately that doesn't have too much in terms of fan-made stuff, technically. So I went into the Tumblr tags and went and looked up a bunch of fan stuff for this show I'm watching. And there was this one person who I really super enjoyed their stuff, and I was like kind of obsessing over it for like a few days, a good few days. And this is actually, I'm gonna say that was like 2 weeks ago, almost 3 now, that I first discovered them. And then a week later, maybe, I ended up just being so overwhelmed with how much I loved what they were doing that I ended up anonymously sending them a message like, hey, I love your stuff and you're awesome. And it took them a few days to respond, and in fact, I went and checked to see if they responded on their blog a little while later, and they were like super excited, and I was like, oh, I'm glad I sent that message now. But then I was like starting to want to draw pictures for this person. So I was like, oh man, I should probably ask, because I don't want to just draw these pictures without their permission. So I ended up coming out of Anon and messaging them like, hey, I was the Anon from this, and I was wondering if I could draw some pictures for you. And let me tell you, I had such a nice, lovely conversation with this person for a while. And I don't know, it made me feel so nice. I was like, aw, this person's so excited, and I'm so happy to be talking to them. And something they even said was that this was the first time anyone had shown particularly strong interest in their work. And I was super surprised because I thought their work was wonderful. And I was under the impression that they had thousands of followers and a lot of love shown their way, but apparently not. And that kind of made me, I was like, oh, now I'm really glad I talked to you, because, I don't know, this person was just so excited and so happy. They were super, I can't even explain it. It was so nice. So basically what I wanted to say about this whole story that I'm telling you is I wanted to just kind of encourage you to, if you have someone out there that you really love their work and you want to compliment them, but you're afraid of going up to them and saying anything, I think you should do it, because you could really make their day and you could have a really nice conversation out of it. Like, honestly, when I was talking to this person, I mean, it was like a good hour or so, and I don't know, it was so good, and I was so excited, and they were so excited, and I really, really encourage you to send that nice message that you were thinking of sending for weeks. I can relate to being afraid of telling people that you enjoy their work so publicly. Like, I send a lot of anonymous messages being like, hey, I like you, and I like your stuff. Just because I'm me and I'm just scared. But I think I'm going to try to not do that as much anymore, because I think I made a friend. Like, I'm gonna send this person another message sometime soon, probably in a day or so, because I was drawing a picture for them and I wanted to get further in it before I sent another message, because I don't know, I still, even though I talked to them, I still felt like I was like, am I being too much? Because I was like, yo, I love your work, it's so awesome, it's so awesome, it's so awesome. And then they'd be like, oh, you're so awesome for loving it, and I'm loving my work. And I was like, yeah, well, I like you more. So I was sitting there afterwards, I was like, was I too strong on that? Was I being too much? Because I kind of felt that way. I'm sure they were having a great old time, but I felt a little embarrassed afterward, because I was like, oh, went a little too much fangirl on that person, huh? But yeah, the whole point of this was just to tell you to try not to be afraid. You could make a really awesome friend out of just sending one compliment. Like, that's really all it takes. And even if you are still scared, maybe just stay on Anon and send a nice message every once in a while. I do that. I do that for a lot of people. And it's just because I'm afraid. It's just that I'm afraid of a lot of social interaction. Like, if I send some nice messages anonymously, then I have no strings attached. Like, haha, I love you. Okay, I'm gonna go hide in the corner again. So I guess you don't feel forced to say something to someone that you like their work or like them in general, but yeah, don't feel bad if you are afraid. But the real whole point of this was that I just wanted to kind of gush to you guys about how great of a time I had talking to this person I never talked before, and how great it was and how much fun it was. I don't know, it's maybe I am too excited, but it gave me a smile for a long time. So I guess that was the true reason. Just wanted to tell you about a nice thing that happened to me lately. Goodness gracious! Oh man, I guess this is like coming to an end. Once again, highly recommend that you go and watch Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. These characters that you're seeing on screen are from Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. They're really amazing. The show is really great. It might seem kinda lame at the beginning, but trust me when I say, it gets really deep near the end of the series. Like, you can tell that these kids are fed up with what they've been having to deal with. There's this heartbreaking scene in the beginning of one of the later episodes where they're almost home again, because they almost get home in almost every episode. Oh yeah, just so you know, the point of the show is that they're in this magical realm because they took a magical ride and ended up there. And the whole point of the series is that they're trying to get back home with the help of the dungeon master, the character that's like telling them what to do, and basically Yoda, and the help of their magical weapons that they attain at the beginning of the series. But anyway, so there's a heartbreaking moment in a later episode where they're almost home and it's like basically in their grasp, and then the bad guy blocks the path somehow, and then you can see just how devastated these kids are to once again not be able to go home. Like, there's a silent moment where everything's over, like the bad guy left, and they can have a breather, and they just kind of sit around and stare, and oh my gosh, it's so sad. Like, there's a little boy on the team, like he's only 10 years old, and then the rest of them are like from age 14 to age 16 or 17, I think. And one of the guys, Eric, he's kind of mean, but he's most of the humor of the series. But anyway, so he trips over this kid's magical weapon, and he starts complaining to the kid because he's basically the complainer of the group. So he starts being like, hey, watch where you're going, like, watch where you're putting your stuff. And then the kid gets really, really upset and mad, and he's really confrontational, basically, in that moment. And then they just start crying. And I was like, this is so, like, I've been with these kids for like 20 episodes, and I didn't, like, there are a lot of moments in the series where you can tell they're really upset about not getting home. It's just, that's one of the biggest moments for me, that and when they meet Ramud. I'll talk about that in the later episode, I suppose. Yeah, that was one of the moments for me where I just really realized that they're real people, and they really want to go home. And like, not gonna lie, it's very heartbreaking, and if I think about it too long, like if I think about it too hard, I might cry because I love these kids so much. Okay, but yeah, I probably talked too long now. I started closing out this episode like 3 minutes ago. Sorry. Yeah, I guess this is the end. I hope you really liked what I did in this episode, even though I had to redo the coloring later on. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support. I really love you guys. Honestly, I love you so much. See you next time.